Thank you, President. Just maybe a couple of things. First, would like to recognize President, you, John Ritchie, Doug Hurst, Paul Whittison for re-election today. I know that all three of you were unopposed, which I think is a tribute to the respect that your constituents have for you, the trust that they have in you, individually and collectively as a board. But congratulations on the election.
Thank you.
This evening, to begin our meeting at 6 o'clock, right after the pledge, we'll welcome the 3 county commissioners into our meeting, and my understanding is that they'll have a check to present to us. The county received 3 installments of CARES funding that originated from the federal government and flowed through the governor's office. And after meeting with the commissioners, they have generously provided some resources, much needed resources for our school district. And that has enabled us to make a few moves from second term on. I want to preface the discussion of those moves with a tribute to our teachers and our nurses. Our teachers have had a tremendous burden that they have carried the first 10 weeks of school, not only providing daily in-person instruction, but also providing online instruction to 2 different groups of students. One we've called short-term flexible learners. These are students mostly who have been quarantined or have had to isolate, or maybe who have been ill for a period up to 2 weeks. The other we've called long-term flexible learners. These are students who, with their families, have decided that for at least a quarter, they would like to learn digitally, learn online. Managing all 3 of those groups has proven unsustainable. The resources that we'll receive from the county commission has enabled us to make some adjustments. Board, you've been given an organizational chart, and I just want to point out a couple of things on here. If you look at the line or purple squares that reflect our directors, and you'll notice that we've added a director position, and that's Nick Harris, who will be the Director of Digital Teaching and Learning. Now, prior, Nick was just listed underneath Lynn Raymond in one of those gray supervisor boxes. So I want you to know that this reorganization for Nick was simply a move from a supervisor to a director. We don't have an intention to replace the supervisor position. So it's not a tremendous expense. And for this year, we'll actually use some of the CARES funding to address that additional expense, but it's not a great expense. We will work with directors now, Nick Harris, Lynn Raymond, Sherry Hyder, over the coming weeks to separate responsibilities. There are things that have been handled within the curriculum department that will move toward the department, if you will, of digital teaching and learning. There are some things that have been handled by the technology department that will move over to digital teaching and learning. So there will be some of that reorganization that takes place. Second, if you look at the row below the directors, now those gray boxes, you'll see Dr. Jennifer Boyer Thurgood, who has been hired as the K-12 Weaver Online High School principal, because that involves 10, 11, and 12, it involves 13 grades. And a high school principal and supervisor are on that same lane. Previous, Jennifer was listed, if you look below, there's a line coming off of Sherry Hyder that includes Christy Wagner. Previous, Jennifer was on that same equivalent line as a curriculum specialist with Christy Wagner. So once again, this is one where we just moved Jennifer, Dr. Thurgood, from a curriculum specialist to a high school principal. So that now reflects the reorganization. With that reorganization, we were able, on Monday of this week, to open Weaver, our K-12 Weaver Online School. It has taken an Herculean effort on the part of all of our directors, as well as Nick and Jennifer, to make this happen. Working closely with principals as they move long-term flexible learners into that K-12 Weaver Online program, communicating with parents. You know, I sent a letter to all the parents. That was followed up by a letter from Dr. Thurgood to all the parents. There had been remarkable communication from the neighborhood school to the families. I want those long-term flexible learners who have moved into the K-12 Weaver Online program to have the best of both worlds. They're going to have an exceptional online experience with a dedicated, certified, full-time Weaver School District teacher who's providing that instruction and working with them academically. However, I've made it clear I don't want those students and their families to lose connection with their neighborhood school. And so the school and their teachers will remain in contact, in connection with them, informing them of class activities, school events. When they're ready, to invite them back in for in-person instruction. So I don't want those families to feel that they are no longer a part of their neighborhood school. They are.
Field trip, back to school nights, everything.
You're right, Paul. Absolutely. All of those things, and we'll continue to work closely with our principals and our teachers to maintain that connection with those families, because we know at any time they'll come back into our neighborhood schools. So that reflects some reorganization.
Jeff, where's Jennifer Boyer Thurgood?
Jeff, could I ask a question?
Out of?
Yeah. Now, John just asked, where is she being located, her office?
Yeah, her office.
Weaver Innovation
So she's
Center.
up there.
And we'll have some teachers that we've already created a place for them as well. Yeah, so she's located at the Weaver Innovation Center.
Awesome, thank you.
Bruce?
Jeff, yes, are all the teacher parent conferences going to be virtual for them?
You just cut out a little bit, Bruce. Ask it one more time.
Are all the parent-teacher conferences going to be virtual for this new online school?
Yes, yes. But we also, we wanted to make it very clear, Bruce, that they have a principal and they have a teacher. You know, so many times families will register for an online program and it's located in Florida and they don't know who their teacher is. We want to make it very clear that they have a principal. I want them to know their principal. They have a teacher. And so if there is a need for something other than virtual, they'll be made available for them. A parent could meet with the principal face to face.
Chip, you alluded to the fact that you anticipated that many of these students might come back. Will that require another restructure, or do you anticipate this going forward?
It's a great question. I envision, Jan, that our K-12 Weaver Online School can grow. We've got homeschool families that can benefit from this. We've got families that are outside of our district that can benefit from this going down the road in the future. So I see this as something that will remain in place. Right now, because of the pandemic, it's primarily Weaver School District families. But I see education never going back to exactly the way it was. You know, we've increased our capacity to deliver instruction digitally. Our capacity, every teacher's ability with Canvas has increased exponentially. Just a tremendous thing. Robert?
I was going to also add, we know that we have individuals in our families in our district that their kids are in online charter schools or online schools like that are offered in our places, and we want to bring them back to Weaver District. So I'm excited for the growth potential here.
And remind us, Jeff, do they have to sign up for a certain amount of time if they go into the K-12 online? Are we asking them to stay a quarter?
We are,
semester?
Paul. Yeah, we are. What we want to avoid, because it's so challenging to both an online instructor as well as a neighborhood school teacher to have the in and out, the back and forth. So we are asking that they, when they come into the K-12 Weaver Online School, that they're looking at it for at least a term. Yeah. The other group.
Can I just ask one more
please.
question really quick on that? Going forward, do we have a systematic way of approaching those students that Robert spoke of that are in our district but not in our district at all currently, not in our online programs at all? Do we have a systematic way that we will be looking at that?
Been working closely, Jan, it's a great question, with our counselors, our principals, who are daily trying to make connections with some of those students and families who may have, just dropped off a little bit. And through the first 10 weeks, a lot of that was addressed. And we've been able to connect with the family and find an option that worked for them and enroll them. I think that with this K-12 Weaver Online School, those that are choosing to learn online will find even greater support because the teacher is full-time with them. The other thing that the money coming from the commissioners will really enable us to do is provide some much needed relief for our nurses who are spending almost their entire time, even at home, contact tracing. The amount of contact tracing that our nurses has done has just been inordinate, and it's been a heavy burden on them. We've hired now, Lori, close to 25 to 30.
Right now, in place, we have 17. So, and still, it's a
And
juggle.
some others that are coming in. Ultimately, we'd like to have up to 30 contact tracers that will be assigned to different schools, as well as a mobile team that can move, depending on where that need might be on any given day. They have been, 17 of them have been hired, they've been trained, we're working with Lynn Raymond to get them the technology that they need so that they can handle that. But that is a much needed thing. Let me mention one other thing related, kind of just stepping back again to the K-12 waiver online. We're not able to provide every course through an online experience that you would be able to deliver in person. I mean, think about some fine arts classes like a choir class or a band class or a drama class. Think about some CTE courses that just need to have that in-person instruction, that experience-based in-person learning to take place. One of those that we're experiencing is with dual language immersion. We're probably going to need to go through a process in the coming days and weeks where a family that wants the dual language immersion experience will need to do that in person. Now, they could do it in a hybrid model where they come for the dual language experience and maybe Weaver online for the English portion of the instruction. But we're finding it not only unsustainable to provide the digital or the dual language immersion experience online, but we're finding the experience itself is highly compromised to try to do it. You know, the dual language experience is not just learning the language, it's learning a subject through the use of the language. So they're not just in a Chinese class learning Chinese. They're in a health class learning health or mathematics or science with the Chinese language. And it's just really about impossible to replicate that online in a Canvas course. And so it's not only an unsustainable offering, but it's also one that greatly compromises the integrity of the program itself. So just know that in the coming days and weeks, we need to process with our families, and there aren't very many of them district-wide that are trying to take it that way, probably 40 to 50 district-wide, but we'll process with them, work with their neighborhood school principal, and we're not eliminating the program. We're just saying if you want that program, it's one that needs to be done in person. And we'd even be willing to do it in a hybrid model where the in-person is there for the dual language part.
So, Dr. Stevens, can I ask one more
Yeah.
question? I'm sorry
Yeah.
to insert here, but I just want to, I'm sure it's been intentionally addressed that we can, that we will meet all the graduation requirements, because you specifically talked about fine arts.
Yes.
But we have enough.
Yes.
So
Thank you.
I knew that would be
Thank you, Jan.
intentionally addressed,
We
but I want
have-
to make sure that goes on.
Thank you. We have a robust set of course offerings, CTE, fine art, and some other elective courses that a long-term digital learner can choose from. But it wouldn't be as complete as what might be offered at one of our comprehensive high school programs. We're not able to offer every program digitally that we're able to offer in person. If you've ever looked at a high school course offering, book, and Jan, as a counselor, there are hundreds and hundreds. We will have a robust set of options for every one of those CTE electives, fine arts, PE, health, but not everything. Great question. Dean, you had a question, I think.
I have a question. How many, a typical day in a class of a teacher, they would have some kids that are there for 5 days. And then would they have some kids that are there every other day? And then I know you've taken the ones that were out the whole time and put them in a different program. I'm trying to picture in my mind what a teacher deals with every day. And then I'd also like to know what's it about the class size of a science teacher or a math teacher or an English teacher. Is it 27 to maybe 30, or do you know what that is?
Yeah. Let me try to respond to that, Dean. We have at the high school, we have some students who are using a hybrid model, a hybrid schedule, meaning that they're coming for some of their classes in person, but they're also learning from home digitally for other classes. But that would be consistent. You know, hopefully a counselor, for example, would be able to build their schedule that A day is in person and B day digital. But there'd be a consistency. At the junior high level, could have some of the same. Most are in person all day. There are some junior high hybrid where, you know, maybe they come for a couple of periods and then they're home for the rest. But that would be consistent. So we shouldn't have situations where a person is 3 days a week in his 8th grade English class and 2 days a week at home on a regular basis. That's the kind of thing that's very difficult for a teacher. But we might have a situation where that student comes to junior high school and takes math, language arts, science, and history, and then is home for his or her other classes, right? At the elementary, most, again, are in person all day. But we have some who are in person for the morning and then home in the afternoon for various reasons. So we try to be very flexible, but do it in a way where there's a consistency to the teacher and not creating a hardship for the teacher. I know exactly what you're saying. Now, having the teachers work with the long-term digital learners created an extreme hardship on them that we said it was unsustainable. Quite frankly, it was just unsustainable. The fact that they made it through 10 weeks is a tribute to our teachers. Let me just maybe continue. That kind of sums up the reorganization. I sent an email this afternoon to you that indicated that Weber High School will begin a soft closure tomorrow. They hit that 15 number case count of positive tests. And once that happened, then we follow the health guidelines and move into a soft closure. I do want to say that model so far has worked. Weber will be our third school that we're putting into a soft closure. Roy High was the first. And right now they have close to 0 cases as they have come back from their soft closure. So we've had the one experience with Roy High, and it's shown that the 2-week soft closure was very effective. Bonneville is beginning the second week of their soft closure. They actually will return to school, I think it's next Thursday, and it's going well. I spoke with Principal Brock Mitchell yesterday, and they're having high participation and engagement from students. They are delivering instruction during the soft closure, and Weber High will do the same thing synchronously. In other words, their teacher sends a link to them, and they join the link just like you and I have been in meetings, just like Dean and Janice and Bruce. So the teacher is delivering the instruction live through a Google Meet. There's a schedule, the students know the schedule, they stay on their AB schedule, and you know, it's been effective to do it that way. I want to clarify something, and I've shared this with you before, but I know it always raises questions. And I'm just going to use specific examples. Bonneville went into a soft closure on Wednesday of last week, but 2 days later their football team played in the state football playoff game. And there were some questions about why could the football team play but the school be closed down? I want to emphasize that the two extracurricular activities are a team, but it doesn't just have to be athletics. It can be, you know, a different type of extracurricular, a DECA, or
Yep.
they're independent of one another. The school could be closed down because there's 15 cases, but if there are fewer than 3 cases on the group, then they can participate. I'll give you an example. With Roy High School, we had to put the football team into soft closure. We had to close them down for 2 weeks because they had 3 positive cases. But the school was still going. And about 2 weeks later, almost to the day, the school had to close down, but now the football team has 0 cases. So the football team could play. Similarly, a week and a half ago, the Fremont football team, unfortunately, had 3 cases and had to close down. That caused them to forfeit their state playoff game and end their season. That was tragic. That was hard. They worked hard the whole season. The school was still open, but the team was down. So I just want you to see, as board members, and as you respond to community questions about why can the team play and the school's closed down, it can go both ways. The team can be closed down and the school can be open as well. Okay? Any questions on that?
No,
The one final thing I'll mention, and this is completely unrelated, but you'll have, and Robert did and Seth and Matt did a nice job today with a pre-audit meeting. But this may be an alert to the board that next month we most likely will come to the board with what's known as a parameters resolution. We have a Series 2011 bond. I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $5 to $6 million. Right now we're paying 4% interest on that bond, and I'm certain that we can get that down below 2, maybe close to 1, as we refund that series. And that does 2 things for us. Number one, it saves, obviously, some money. But number 2, and maybe more importantly, it allows us to restructure our existing debt and create some space, if you will, that if the board decides that we're going to go out to bond a year from now, November of 2021, we have some additional capacity to bring on debt in a way that will save taxpayer dollars. And so it's just one more strategic move as we try to position ourselves for a bond in 2021 if the board chooses to go that direction.
And keep our impact as low as possible on the constituents.
Correct. President, that's all I have.
Thank you, Superintendent. Board or anybody else have any questions? We have 11 minutes till the next one. Go ahead, Janice. Do you have, or Bruce or Dean?
No.
nope, I'm good, thank you.
Appreciate the explanation, thank you.
Okay, very good. Well, hang tight. Remember, if you get something during the board meeting, just be patient, speak clearly in the mic, and we'll see you in just a minute. Thank you.